Okay, we're back. We're finally ready to go. And we get Kapila is going to get a little tough today. So, let's where we left off with Kapila. He said something pretty amazing. He said Bhakti yoga is so powerful that it doesn't really even need any other yoga to help it, and that it's instantaneously effective. So basically what he's saying is Bhakti yoga all by itself is instantaneously effective. As soon as you do its main practice, kirtan, you'll become established in your relationship with Bhagavan. So Devahuti says if it's so effective, if it's so effortlessly powerful, why don't I immediately achieve perfection by doing it? So he makes this outstanding statement. Bhakti Kirtan is so amazingly powerful, you'll get perfectly enlightened just the instant you do it. And you don't have to do anything else. And she says, well, then why doesn't it work? So now he explains. Basically what he's saying is it does work, but nobody's doing it. Nobody does it right. So he says, worship of me is nothing but a show. Worship of me is nothing but a show. If you remain ignorant of my presence as the eternal essence of every mortal being. So, worship of God is a farce if you don't worship people. That's what he's saying. Why is bhakti not effective? Bhakti yoga not effective? Because of how we treat people. Period. Bhakti is the yoga of love. So if you think that it's not reasonable for its success or failure to be based on how you feel about people, then you're not very reasonable. Bhakti yoga is a yoga of love or emotion. So your emotions and your feelings towards people, now you're saying, no, it's just about God. I remember this while I was a teenager. I kind of was in this phase. The bow to God, but nobody else phase. Kapila would have had a field day with that. Worship of me is a farce. Bow to God, but nobody else. You're not even bowing to God because God isn't everybody. In fact, the most immediate and real, tangible way that you experience God is the way he's manifest all around you in every person. So when you say bow to God, but nobody else, you're saying bow to nobody because God doesn't exist for you, except as your imagination, like Darth Vader exists. So let me clean this lens. It looks a little bit dirty, bothering me. What? No, let me see. The picture is fine, so we'll just leave it alone. All right. Worship of me. This is really important. Please get this right. Please hear this. Kapila says in the Bhagavad Purana, worship of me is nothing but a show if you remain ignorant of my presence as the eternal essence of every mortal being. It's not going to work. You're not really worshiping God or anything like that if you treat people like garbage, if you treat people disrespectfully, if you don't care about people, if you don't worship people. Fools worship me, yet ignore my presence as the eternal master within all beings. Fools. Not good people worship me, but ignore my presence as the eternal master in all beings. Pretty okay people or religious people or whatever people. No, fools. Fools worship me. Why are you a fool if you worship God but ignore God's presence in all things, in all people? It's like saying, saying, I love you, but don't come over. I don't want to see you. So what? God is right in front of our face. Manifest in everybody in your family, everybody on your block, everybody in your country, everybody in the world, all the animals, all the plants. There's God. If you will not worship those beings, but you will worship something in a church or in a temple or in a mosque, then you're an idiot. You're a fool. Here's God in your house, at your table, but you won't take care of him there. But you want to go pray somewhere else or worship somewhere else or give a donation somewhere else. So Kapila says, fools worship me, yet ignore my presence as the eternal master within all beings. Their worship is like offering a sacrifice into ashes. You got to offer a sacrifice into fire, not into the ash of a fire. He who offers me respect, but disrespects other beings, is still a separatist, bound by his envy. Envy means hatred of others. Suyata. Bound by his hatred of others, bound by his envy, his mind cannot find peace. Why is the Bhakti Yoga not working? I did Kirtan, I did Hare Krishna so many times. Why is it not working? Because you treat people bad, because you don't realize what it is you're supposed to be doing is Bhakti. Bhakti is love. Why are you acting like an ignoramus, but doing supposedly Bhakti? You're just doing a show. You're just going through motions. Love is respectful. Love cares about other people. If you're disrespectful to other beings, then you're a separatist. You're not a bhakta. Bound by envy, his mind cannot find peace. My dear, pure mother, I am certainly not pleased. You might think, well, at least God will be pleased by my worship. I'll wave a candle at God and then I'll go beat my wife. Or I'll ignore my kid or something. But I'll pray to God, or I'll wear a cross or whatever. At least, God will like that one part. No, God doesn't like it. Sorry. Doesn't like it at all. He likes you even worse than if you just ignore him. I am certainly not pleased when worshipped by someone who disrespects other beings. He hates to be worshipped by people who disrespect people. Even if they worship me with all paraphernalia, opulence, ritual, and expertise. But that's exactly what we're saying. One can worship me forever, he says. Now, you'll do this so-called bhakti yoga or religion or whatever forever, and you'll never get a result from it until you realize that it's about love, so you better start being loving to God, who's everywhere. One can worship me forever by offering his deeds to me. But so long as he does not embrace all beings in his heart, his worship will not bear fruit. Not only is it not, now what I'm saying is not only is it like, okay, well, I guess it's kind of nice. No, he doesn't like it actually. It's displeasing to him. It's irritating. It's annoying to him. So he says, I give them instead of the result of bhakti. They want their liberation or whatever. Instead, I grant them terribly fearful death. I grant terribly fearful death to he whose separatism discriminates between the needs of his own belly and the needs of other bellies. Therefore, be sure to see me as the eternal foundation of all beings equally. Offer assistance, friendship, and respect to all beings as appropriate. Right, Abhishek. Why are you so... Abhishek says, sorry, this needs some clarification. Yesterday, you had said that you need to stay away from people you're not friends with. First of all, I said you need to stay away from people who are hateful to you. And that is how you love them and show them respect. You don't become disrespectful or hateful to them. But you don't give them the opportunity to perform negative deeds towards you. Negative deeds hurt nobody but the doer the most. So how is that being disrespectful? It's being respectful to people to keep away from them. When if you're in their presence, all they're going to do is harm you. Any other questions about this? You see, if you're from like a more typical bhakti background, you'll know this principle, but you never really thought about it, did you? It's called aparadha. The bhakti is radha, and it's blocked by aparadha. Right? But I bet you never realized that the first aparadha is disrespect. And I bet you never realized that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Trinadapi Sunichana Tarori Vashishnana Amanena Manadena Kirtaniyastari. That you can only really do kirtan after you have a very respectful mentality, a very appreciative mentality, a very loving mentality towards everybody. Because then you don't have aparadha. When your heart doesn't have aparadha, which is the opposite of love, which is negligence or smallness, hardness, then it can become affected by bhakti. Okay. Any other questions about this? Is the deal. This is why when you do bhakti yoga, it doesn't work. You, me, everybody. Because we have not realized what we're trying to do is bhakti, love. So the way you treat your kids, the way you treat your spouse, the way you treat your parents, the way you treat your neighbor means something. It's not my spiritual life. There's no such thing as not my spiritual life. My mundane life or whatever it is. All these things are God. All these people are God. Treat them like God. Crime. This means something which is wrong, which is a hateful act. Anger is not really the same as hate. Anger comes when, this is for Miss Vinay. Yes, Melissa. Yes, Arrow. For Miss Vinay, anger is different than hate. Anger can arise without hate. Anger can arise from love. Anger is when something is blocking from achieving the goal. That's when you experience anger. It's not necessarily that it's connected with hate. Loving people can be angry. Hateful people can be angry. Hey, Elizabeth. Okay, so we're done with that section. Want to go to the next section, or you want to have any more clarification about this? This is the heaviest thing. The heaviest section. Kapila himself is saying, worship and all your worship and all your yoga and all your spiritual stuff is useless if you treat people like garbage. But it will be very powerful when you treat people right. All right, we'll go on to the next section. Devahuti requests, I should be kind to all living beings as appropriate to their station and needs. Now, please explain the different stations that living entities can exist in. This will also answer my question about the various entanglements of the jiva. So now we're going to a new section. You remember what was her first question? Her first question was, I want to hear more details about bhakti. What are the different categories of bhakti? And what's the right way to do it, to practice it? So he answered that by saying, there's different motivations towards love. There's 4 categories of motivations towards love. 3 of them are impure and result from having separatism, separate interests. One of them is pure, is when you have no separate interests from the beloved. That's called Shuddha Bhakti. And then the way to practice that towards Bhagavan is by practicing kirtan, which is discussion of Bhagavan and kind of like glorification of Bhagavan. Then he says it's so effective, it's super effective. And then she says, if it's so effective and super effective, why doesn't it work when people do it? And she says, because they're not doing it. Kapila Dev says, because they're not doing it. They're making a show of doing it. They're imitating some activity of love, but they have no love. They treat everybody like garbage. So if you want to treat people like garbage, don't expect anything to come from your Bhakti Yoga. But if you want some result from the Bhakti Yoga, make sure you remember that all of these things are manifestations of Bhagavan's Shakti. So treat them as you would treat Bhagavan. Now, she also asked, what are the different entanglements that the jiva gets itself into? Because she said, I'm entangled in the external world. What are the different kinds of ways that conscious beings get entangled in the world, and how can they get untangled? So now she's segueing into that. She wants him to answer that question. She says, since you mentioned that we should be respectful and friendly towards everybody, and you put a caveat on it that not to treat everybody the same, like Abhishek mentioned before. It was Abhishek, right? Or was it Anil? Abhishek. So loving everybody doesn't mean you treat everybody equally. I love a tiger, but I don't treat a tiger the same way I treat a kitten. I love them both, but I'll put a kitten on my lap, but I'm not going to put a tiger on my lap. Or, a snake or cobra or something. It doesn't mean I don't love the snake by leaving it alone. He wants me to leave it alone. So you treat everybody uniquely according to who and what they are, but always motivated by love. So now she says, since you brought that topic up, tell me about all the unique types of beings that there are. Wait, I think I'm missing some questions. How do we not let the people who have hurt us or disrespected us cloud our love for people who are good and respectful to us? Don't judge people by how they're good or respectful to you. That's a bit self-oriented. People's activities are just the result of their previous activities. And for the most part, they're completely oblivious to what they're doing. So that's not the real person. That doesn't mean that if a car is rolling down the street, you should stand in front of it saying that's not the real car. That's the real car. It's going to hit you and run you over. Get out of the way. If people are doing negative things, that negative things are actually happening. So get away from them. But as for evaluating the person doing the negative thing, their participation in, they're fools. Whether they behave well towards you or ill towards you is not the measure of their merit. Their merit is simply in the fact that they're conscious beings. They're Shakti of Bhagavan. Their current behavior might be completely wrong. You don't have to engage yourself with their current behavior. You don't have to respect and love their current behavior. Respect and love the fact that they are conscious beings, and therefore worthy of your respect, in some way appropriate to what they're manifesting themselves as. And I think that answers your question also, Abhishek. Yeah. Danny makes a good point. To ignite, see, Kapila is saying it's based on separatism, that we don't like other people. So once you start seeing, like Kapila said, why would you put the needs of your belly so much higher than the needs of other people's bellies? They're all bellies. They all need to eat. And so, I mean, what is the difference if your next door neighbor is doing well or you're doing well? Who cares? It's nice that they're doing well. They're basically the same thing as you. That kind of thing. Stop seeing yourself as something different than everybody else. Okay, now let's go on to the next point for a couple of more minutes. So she wants to know about the different grades of beings, and this is going to be a very different section. But very interesting. Kapila says the lowest beings are those that compose inert matter, exhibiting no symptoms of life. So even the bed and the floor are composed of conscious entities. But the conscious entities manifest as the inert objects when they're very, very low, very, very unmanifest. When the form which they exhibit is very, very, very low on the scale. Hey, Yilla. So that's the lowest type of being, is just stuff, dirt, rocks, etc. That's also a Shakti of Bhagavan. The lowest beings are those that compose inert matter, exhibiting no symptoms of life. But higher than them are those with signs of life. So he's got this two basic thing. There's beings that have life and there's beings that don't have life, although they're both actually conscious entities. The ones that don't exhibit signs of life are not exhibiting any signs of life or experiencing any aspects of life. So he's now going to explain what the signs of life are. So now we're going to go exclusively into the category of beings that exhibit signs of life. It's going to say the most basic sign of life. What do you think it is? Biology, I don't know. What does biology think is the most fundamental criteria for being considered a living thing? Anybody knows, let me know. It's been too long since I was in high school. Um, reproduction? Reproduction? That's weird because atoms can like reproduce, can't they? Without life. Breath? Not really. He says the most basic sign of life is to metabolize energy. It's kind of like eating. To metabolize energy is the basic sign of life, is that it's using energy and transforming it. So the next grade up from just inert things are things that metabolize, things that transform other things. Among things that metabolize, better are those with some type of sentience. So some things are just metabolizing, like cells in a plant or something, but they're not making any decision or experience. There's no sentience involved with the metabolism. It's like an automated metabolism structure, like really simple organic building blocks or just metabolism structures, but aren't exhibiting any sign of sentience. Sentience means the ability to respond to a stimulus. Actually, they don't know how to classify viruses. Yeah. I think Kapila would classify a virus as the second type of being that metabolizes things but doesn't really exhibit sentience. Then you have those who have sentience. Now he's going to talk about the ways of exhibiting sentience. So first division is some things have no metabolism. Those are the lowest type of being. Then there's things that have metabolism. Now we're going to zoom into the things that have metabolism. Amongst those, some things don't show any sentience, and some things do show sentience. Now we're going to zoom into those that show sentience. And he's going to talk about the ways that sentience can be exhibited. Among those with sentience, better are those that have some capacity for perception. So some might just be internally sentient, but if the entities that have some sentience, they should have some ability to perceive external things. Then they're higher on the evolutionary scale. Exactly, that's what I'm saying, Sima. Like maybe you guys are talking to each other. Now they're going to zoom. The Kapil's going to zoom in on the ones that have some ability to perceive the external world, and he's going to talk about the various grades of perception. Amongst entities with perception, simplest are those that merely have a sense of touch. So according to Kapila, the most basic sense is the touch. Don't really know why, but that's what he says is the evolutionarily simplest life form. The only way that they can experience the external world is through the sense of touch, like the hairs on the outside of a cell wall or something, the little antennas and things. So amongst those who have perception, simplest are those that only have a sense of touch. Better are those who also have a sense of taste. So then taste apparently develops second. Some mouth and some sensitivity to flavor. Better still are those who also have a sense of smell. Better than all of these are those who have the sense of hearing. Best of all are those who can also see. So most developed life forms will have 5 perceptive senses. But some life forms that are very simple won't even have all 5. But even though some don't have the 5 organs, they still have the 5 perceptions. Like, for example, bats see without light. They see sonic, but the brain processes it as vision. Snakes hear without ears. Okay, among entities with all 5 senses. So now he's going to zoom into the entities that have 5 senses and give you the evolutionary hierarchy with those. Because there's quite a few, right? Most entities have 5 senses. Yeah, Abhishek, one would think that it would, but it didn't. Amongst entities with all 5 senses, better are those that have some form of teeth. So amongst them, better are those with legs. Amongst them, simplest are those with many legs. Or none. This is very interesting. We just said they have legs. So leg means independent locomotion. So snakes, for example, have no legs, but yet they're counted among things that have legs. Sometimes they're called no legs, or sometimes they're called one leg. So simplest are those that have many legs or none. So they kind of move in the same way, like a wave motion. Better are those that have 4, and best are those who have 2. Amongst the 2-legged, the civilized humans are the best. Amongst the civilized, the intellectuals are the best. So now he's really zoomed in. Her question is, what are the different kinds of ways that the jivas live? I should love and respect them all, but obviously I'm not going to interact with them all in the same way. So he's also pointing out who's the most worthy of respect, and therefore who you should make sure you don't insult and neglect first. So he's gone all the way up from just crystals and rocks and dirt to things that metabolize like viruses and so forth, to things that have sentience, to things that have perception, but simple perception, all the way up to 5 senses of perception. And then of those with 5 senses of perception, the different gradations based on how many legs they have. And then those with 2 legs, the humans, and then civilized humans. Now he's into this kind of close to home for us. Amongst the 2-legged, civilized humans are the best. Among the civilized, intellectuals are the best. So the best kind of civility to have is to be learned. You might know a lot about how to set a table. You might know a lot about how to comb your hair, etc., etc. You might know a lot about flute and all those things. But the best, the essence actually of all that civility and civilization is your knowledge. So it's really the knowledge or the intellect, which is the essence of civilization. So he's coming to the point where he's saying, amongst humans, the feature is the intellect, and so those who have more and more refined intellect are more and more evolved. Amongst 2-legged, civilized humans are the best. Amongst the civilized, intellectuals are the best. Amongst the intellectuals, those who study the Veda are the best. It's the best subject to study. But he's not done yet. He hasn't gotten to the end. Amongst those who study the Vedas, those who understand it are the best. So you see, many people study the Vedas. That's great. Fewer people understand what they're studying. Amongst those who can understand it, those who can explain it are the best. Because it's one thing to understand it, but it's another thing to understand it well enough that you can explain it. Amongst those who can explain the Vedas, those who exemplify it, those who explain it by their example in their own daily lives are the best. This is how you really teach knowledge. You don't really teach knowledge by telling, you really teach knowledge by showing. Although you have to tell in order to show. So amongst all the people, the humans, intellectuals are the best. Amongst all the intellectuals, those who study the Vedas are the best. Amongst those who study the Vedas, those who understand it are the best. Amongst those who understand it, those who can explain it are the best. Amongst those who explain it by example are the best. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Animals, they are very good with other senses. It's not a sixth sense, but it's a primacy of. It's a perfection in another sense that we don't have. Actually, the Gita explained Praktishtani Karshati in that verse, Praktishtani Karshati, that each different type of life form has some specialty to it, which it excels at over others. And so for example, bears have super, super great smell. A lot of animals have really good smell that you would be amazed at. Some animals have really good hearing. And they can use these senses to detect things that we don't even realize you could use these senses to detect. So amongst those who explain it by their own example, he's still not done. He says, amongst those who can explain it who can show or teach the Veda by their own example of how they live, those who have no other need for action are the best. So those who are following the Vedic teachings amongst them, there's those who need to follow it for their own purification, and there's those who don't need to follow it, but just do so to show people how to do it. Those are better. Amongst them, those who also completely offer their inner wealth, their emotions, to me, are the very best. Of those people who have no external desires, therefore have no need to perform any action correctly or care about incorrect action. Amongst those, some people just don't care about anything. They've lost all their desire. But greater than those are the people that have desire to please Bhagavan. And therefore they have an emotional connection with Bhagavan. He says those are better. Amongst those, that's it. That's the end. That's the top of the line. So he says, amongst them, those who constantly dedicate. I'm sorry, I skipped one. I skipped one. So he says, those who study the Vedas are the best. Those who understand it are even better. Those who can teach it are even better. Those who can teach it by their example are even better. Those who have no other reason to act except to teach others are still better. Those who have no other reason to act but are full of love for me, and they offer their interactions to me, those are even better. They're teaching the full essence of the Veda by their example. And though of those, actually, I'm sorry, I skipped the one that I skipped again, because he's talking about actions, right? Those who have no need to act but who act for others are better than those who have need to act but act correctly. Those who have need to act but act correctly, those are great. Those who act correctly even though they have no need to act, they're even better. Those who dedicate all their actions to pleasing Bhagavan are even better. And then those who dedicate even their interaction to Bhagavan are the topmost. So I'll just read the paragraph one more time and then finish it up. Amongst the two-legged, civilized humans are the best. Amongst the civilized, intellectuals are the best. Amongst intellectuals, those who study the Veda are the best. It's the best science to study. Amongst them, those who understand it are the best. So even to study it is quite good, even if you don't understand it. Amongst them, those who can clearly explain it are the best. Amongst them, those who exemplify it in their own daily lives are the best. Amongst them, those who have no other need for action are the best. Among them, those who constantly dedicate all their actions and wealth to my service are the best. Amongst them, those who also completely offer their inner wealth, their emotions to me, are the very best. I do not see any greater being than them. No one is more perfect in their vision of equality, neutrality, and selflessness. So that's at the end of the line. Then he says, be very respectful towards all of them, understanding that each one is an atomic part of the all-attractive master. Be very respectful towards all of them. It's not like, this guy, he's trying to study the Vedas, but he doesn't even know. Ha! No, I mean, you gotta read this. Not only is this guy an atomic part of the all-attractive master, but he's studying the Vedas. Look, it's a stupid rat. Step on it. That's an atomic part of the all-attractive, and it's a cool living entity that has this cool sensory array that can experience things that you could never experience. Show some respect. Respect each thing and being for what it is. Not for don't make up something. Like, oh, look, it's God. Let me go hug it. Yeah, if it's a scorpion, don't go hug a scorpion. Respect each being for what it is and treat it appropriately to what it is. That's interesting. Oh, wow. All right, guys. It's very nice of you to keep me company all these days. A lot of viewers. Apparently this was an interesting topic or something. Fake Bhakti. That was in the first part. So if you missed the first part and you want to see what the title was all about, go and watch the replay. All right, guys. So I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, let me give you a coming attraction. She asked him about time also, right? So now the next thing he's going to explain is time. This is also really interesting, how it bestows good and bad fruits. All right, my friends. See you tomorrow.